and who am I? I'm Max. I've been an iOS developer for a while, software engineer for a while. I worked at a company called Blipper for a while, then Grey Parrot, which did computer vision for recycling facilities. And right now I'm a developer advocate at Agora, and I love writing open source code. I have a very full GitHub of open source code. That's why Paul and I were enjoying a conversation about that the other day. So does anyone here know what a developer advocate is? A little bit? Okay, so it means something different at pretty much every company. Sometimes it means you just write blogs for developers, sometimes you make videos, sometimes you go to meetups and meet people. For me, my main role at Agora is trying to make sure that our SDK offerings, which is iOS, Android, Windows, basically everything except the washing machine. I make sure that those are what developers want, and we're offering the right solution, and it's not so clunky, basically. So, what does that mean? Yeah, so it's developer experience is the sort of umbrella term of the things that I try to work on. That means making sure the docs are up to date, installation is fine, basically making sure it's like user experience, but the users are developers, so yeah, developer experience. Let's see. Yeah, this is sort of the main things that I go by. Developers always have another option. So at my company Agora, we work on, we make a video SDK, so if someone wants to add video calling to their apps, make an SDK. We know that there's so many choices out there, and we want to make sure that we leave the best taste in someone's mouth if they try our SDK, things like that. And yeah, we want to build tools that help developers concentrate on their app, not on your SDK, not on your bit of software. Just plug that in, and off you go. So we're talking mostly about iOS specifically here today, because that's where we are. So the main thing when you're starting a SDK, let's say you're choosing between Swift or Objective-C, and a lot of people here will probably say Swift. Is that right? I'm going to try and show you why Objective-C is not a bad choice as well. People are going to be thinking bad things about that, but you can make it work very nicely. So as long as you follow the Coca design patterns given by Google that make sure that Objective-C plays very, very nicely with Swift, and the language interoperability is all there, your Objective-C library is very, very good, because obviously it's going to work with Objective-C apps as well, which unfortunately there are a lot of those out there. So when I say like Coca design patterns, this is what I'm sort of talking about. Hopefully you can see that. It's big enough. It's a little bit funny with this, but we've tried. So let's say you've got two classes, like sandwich preferences and sandwich. This is taken from Apple's examples. And you've got includes crust. This is perfectly fine for Objective-C, but when it gets to Swift, you might want to change a few things. Like, for example, sandwich preferences. You might want to just put preferences inside of sandwich in Swift and call it just preferences. And if you want to access it, use the namespace sandwich.preferences. Or if you're inside sandwich, you just say preferences. It includes crust. It's a little bit less Swifty in my opinion, but that's always up for interpretation. But this is what we can do to the Objective-C code to make it play nicer with Swift. We can add ns-swift name sandwich.preferences. That's going to nest it inside of sandwich when it comes into Swift. And you can also do that on properties, you can do it on enums, you can do it on anything. So then the end result here would be sandwich.preferences, and it's crusty true, which looks a little bit nicer in Swift than the previous example there. I'm going to go through a couple more of these. Can anyone tell me roughly, a bit of participation from the audience here, anyone tell me what's wrong with this? What's wrong with the Swift version of this?
Too many.
What's that?
Forced
on wraps. We don't like those in general. We want optional or just an come on in. We want like an optional or just no options, right? But when you're writing a bit of C or something coming from C++, whatever, if you have a pointer like this, it's going to just give you a force on wrap. Has anyone seen that in an SDK they've used before? Something that's come in from yeah, you have, you're nodding. And there's such an easy way to fix that, which is what I've sort of been advocating for at my company. And all you have to do is add nullable and non-null, and that's it. Then your Swift is just fixed. And so the reason I'm going through all these things is you might be using a framework that does all these bad practices, and it's not very useful to just say to them, hey, this is all null, like what's going on? This is bullshit. You want to say, hey, you need to add this non-null thing, and that'll fix it. And then they'll probably be like, oh, I see. Because a lot of people don't realize that, especially people who are just C++ developers that have just ported their library to work on iOS. There's probably one more. Nope, I got rid of it. It was just an enum one. You can do more things with enums to make them come out nicely in the wash when you do it with the bit. So when you're looking for a new SDK to use, library, anything, for me, these are the sort of first questions that come to mind. Is this right for me, and how do I figure that out? Does this SDK deliver its promises? How long is it going to take for me to figure that out? And will this become a bit of technical debt later on? And we know what the right answers for all this are. We want to make sure the developer sees that our library is the right answer for all those questions. So, I don't know, CocoaPods is really pissed me off sometimes, especially with M1. I don't know if anyone's had a hard time fixing CocoaPods on an M1 Mac. There's ways to do it, but it can go wrong really, really easily. And there's a lot of things out there. This is just something I found on GitHub and some YouTube video talking about it. We want as few steps as possible to install. This goes more than just iOS, but that's sort of a given, but it's the things you want to look for at the beginning. So Swift packages is my preference. If you can have Swift packages and CocoaPods, go for it. But what I did here was I just I looked on GitHub, Swift package manager issues. I just ordered it it's not ordered by date, and it's just like things opening up every few days. Any CocoaPods package that doesn't have a Swift package already, there's going to be an issue. Someone's opened on it being like, please add Swift package. I think this person said somewhere we got the dependency on CocoaPods is a deal breaker. People don't want to use CocoaPods so much anymore. And if you're not using Swift packages, people are going to, if there's another option that does just use Swift package, people are probably just going to go with it. What else is here? Semantic versioning. This is a bit of a not nuance, but this is less common of an issue. But a lot of SDKs that I've used in the last couple of years have used really weird versioning that doesn't work with Swift package, and it shouldn't work because it's not valid. Does anyone know much about semantic versioning, like what that actually is? So when you get like a version 1.2.3, right? That's valid. If you do 1.2.3.4, not valid anymore. It's only 3 integers. It can have metadata at the end. And if it has something other than that, Swift package is going to say not allowed. Not allowed in my repo, and not allowed in your project there. So this is another thing that a lot of businesses don't realize and don't care because they avoid normal convention to just say, you know what, I'm just going to add another integer here, and it's very annoying. So we want to avoid doing that too. But yeah, unambiguous naming. This is for all software engineering really. Right? You want to have unambiguous sort of naming. Just if you leave a little bit of instruction in the name of a method, this is probably sounding like everyone here probably knows that, but some people really forget that, and it's really annoying, especially when they don't add inline docs. And to be honest, you shouldn't rely on docs for someone to know what your method's going to do? Not entirely. You can have dogs, but if it's not obvious, then there's probably something else going wrong. And this is just, actually this is from Reality Kit, where Apple's just not added any docs. This is taken a week ago, so we'll see if Reality Kit in 2022 changes that, but I'm going to assume not. And so this is how easy it is to add, like in my docs. You've probably seen, well, if you haven't written a package, it might not have been so important for you, but you can just do Command-Alt-Shift, and it writes all this out for you. It gives you a place to write the summary, it gives you all the parameters, and then it just appears like this in your project. And you've all seen this view before, and it's just that easy to make it, and it's very disappointing when people don't put it in there. Okay, another one, this is more for open source projects, or even like closed source projects that have like an open source fronting. Like any Swift package has to basically have a GitHub place there, but it could include binaries. So that's not open source, but still. Detailed README. There's my little mug there. You got to get rid of all your stale branches. I've seen projects that have like more than 20 branches on, saying max dev 2, last updated 6 months ago. Most people won't care, but some people will care. And if it's my project, I'll care. Good thing to add to any project really is the GitHub Actions. They're very, very good. They can range from anything from just making sure your code compiles, running a Swift lint, to even just deploying your project on CocoaPods. Like you can make it so that if you just add a tag, it'll deploy it to CocoaPods straight away for you. You don't have to do anything. They're very good practice. They're very good for a developer coming in to say, do I want to use this package? They see that you're running all these automations. It's probably not just a throwaway, like here's a project, have fun. And then you can add all these to the badges at the top of your repos, which links to a Slack channel, like pre-release version, the current release, current stable release, and throw some images in there. Even if your project is just data-oriented, even if it's just very functional, add an image, because it's just going to make it look a little bit more like you care. And if you don't add an image, you just see a wall of text, people are just going to scroll on and go to the next project. All right, I'm going to go through some examples of things. So some of them are actually projects of mine. So I'm not shilling anything too much, but and one is an example of a package that came out from Google last week that in one of the Slacks I'm in, one of my friends started complaining about, and then we started digging into it a little bit deeper. You'll see. So AR Core Geospatial, yes, this is for iOS. AR Core is actually available for iOS as well via CocoaPods, but we'll get into that. May 11th, it just came out, so that's great. And for those who don't know what the geospatial thing is, it's like a visual positioning system where let's say if you're on the street, sees a building across the street, it has some images. Well, I can get into how it works, but it has some images of a building that you're looking at, but it's a slightly different angle, so it's able to figure out exactly where you're stood based on the angle of your camera and all that. So really, really neat bit of tech that you can now use from Google. But there's a couple things that I don't like about it. And some of those are, it's CocoaPods only. It still works and everything, but it's a bit nicer to just import a Swift package, right? It's just, and then I looked at the repo for this. It has a dependency. I looked into that, and yeah, there's a comment on it from 2020 saying, please add Swift package, and the response was, it might cause a breaking change. From a Google engineer said, it might cause a breaking change. It causes a breaking change, and there's something wrong with your project, and also it's been 2 years, so I don't know. That's a problem I had with it there. What else is on here? Yeah, all of their documentation was only in Objective-C. There was no option to, sometimes they have Objective-C and Swift there. It was just all Objective-C, and yeah, just it's not what the developers in iOS these days really want to see. So yeah, as we've said, and because of the Objective-C stuff, they're using these really long constants. They're all global. There's no scoping at all, and I mean, for me, I'm a little bit anal about the whole global variables thing. I don't want any global variables anywhere in any projects that I do, and it's just, I don't know. For me, this is just a bit of bad practice. They have no example codes in Swift. It's all Objective-C. So yeah, I think there's room to improve there. Although they're offering some really cool tech, so it'd be good to see that change. So this is multi-peer connectivity, which is from iOS. And I'm going to walk through what it takes to set up multi-peer connectivity. So multi-peer connectivity is, so you have two iOS devices. Actually, it could be your Mac as well as an iOS device. It creates a local network using pretty much the same protocol as AirDrop. It uses Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to figure out where each other's devices are and everything, and send data between the devices. Now, to set up multi-peer connectivity, there's a few steps. So this one, what does it say? In the view controller, set up a session, you give yourself a peer ID, you set the encryption preference, whatever, and set your delegate. And this delegate method here will receive data. It comes from any other devices on the network. It could be directly to you or just to everyone. From there, I always got a bit confused with this one. So it's you add a nearby service advertiser, and this nearby service advertiser advertises that you want to join a session of someone else's. Maybe it makes sense to some people. That I got a little bit confused with that when I was working on it. And let's say you're advertising, I want to join a session, and then someone says, you can join my session. Then you add this delegate handler to say, true, I want to join the session, link it with my session that's been set up here. Do that, and then of course the other side of that, you have to make a browser, which makes a service that looks for advertisers to then send the advertiser a request to join your session, based on any criteria that you set in there. I don't know, if you just want to set up a quick session between a couple of devices, this seems a bit long to me, especially seeing as most people will just want a default functionality. They just want to have an app that makes a session and just connects to all the other apps with the same type around it. So I went away and, was that a duplicated slide? Yes. I made a package called multi-peer helper. And all you need to do for that is say, create a service name, which was in the previous one as well. Set a peer name, which is your local user's name, and add your delegate, and it'll just look for every device that runs the same multi-peer helper service name will automatically connect to you, and you can get the other delegate methods to say, hey, someone else has joined, someone's left, and send data to and from them pretty easily. And this is just a Swift package, and that's all there is to it. And to me, that's a better developer experience for 99% of people. And you make it as extensible as you can, so that if someone wants to do something much more detailed, they still have access to override anything they want, and access all the properties involved in that. Another one I mentioned earlier, I've done a couple of AR projects. So this is another little AR project I did for manipulating AR environments through your phone. For now, we'll see. So there's a few familiar UI elements that you're used to in the 2D UI kit, and I brought them into AR so you can manipulate those with your finger on your phone to do stuff. So how that sort of looks is, they look like this here. So you have literally, you just drag your finger along the slider. You can move your phone around instead, and it'll all work. It'll step in and it'll toggle. So this is the toggle, the reality UI switch. and let's just say you create a switch, and then this is the callback method for the switch changing, and then you just place that in your scene, and it'll just work. That's another little project I did because I like making these little projects. So yeah. What else in here? Oh yeah, this is an example of them all together. The GIF is sort of cutting off halfway through, but what happens is this slider makes the box thinner and bigger, and the step element moves up and down, and the toggle on the left changes the color of it. Just a little project to make things a little easier for developers making something in AR. Because if you want to manipulate the AR environment, Reality Kit's a tough place to start. They don't really give you anything. You can't even make a cone, which is one of the images on the Reality Kit logo, but anyway. What else is in here? So yeah, now I'll do a little bit about Agora. We do real-time engagement, whether that's video, audio, or like sending data between people with really low latency. We use our own data centers around the world, support for every platform, and very, very flexible SDKs. When I joined Agora, there were a few developer experience problems that I ran into. Starting from not having a Swift package to just not being very Swifty with the language itself. So that's some of the things that that I've been working on there ever since. So I don't know, if you ask me now, I think if you want to add video calling to your apps, probably the best developer experience you can get, except a zero code option, which there's a few of those. So we made Agora UI Kit, which sort of takes care of even more of the stuff for you. So we have multiple different layouts. You can just basically make a UI view, just put it there, and it'll automatically make your video chat within that UI view. Live call and live broadcasting. We'll switch between the active speaker, whoever's speaking will appear main on the screen. You know if someone's muted their mic, or you can fetch authorization tokens automatically and mute and unmute other users in the channel. And I'll show you a little bit what that looks like. So this should just say Agora now, not UI Kit. If you want to make a basic video calling app, this is the code that you had to add when I joined. Can't read it all, but it's everything from updating the view layout when someone joins to adding control buttons to actually, I think there's yeah, there we go. So if a fifth person joins, it'll rearrange the video feeds. It'll gracefully handle it if someone leaves, all that stuff. But a lot of these things are really, really boilerplate. Every single person who makes a video call is going to do probably 80 to 90% of these things. They have to write it all by hand, which, it's fine if you want a very, very custom UI, but if you want a really basic one, you shouldn't have to do all of that. So we made Agora UI Kit to create this view, essentially, and a couple of other different layouts, but this is the default layout, where this person can update if this person starts talking, they'll appear here. And all you have to do is say Agora Video Viewer, give it the connection data, like the app ID, the app token, the token URL, things like that. I added just a little helper method, fills, that's just going to fill another UI view with this one and add the right constraints and things. And join a channel called Test as a broadcaster, as opposed to an audience member where you're just watching. You just join as a broadcaster, and yeah, that's how easy it is to add a video call to your app now. You just add a button, launches that view, you're done. So yeah, that's everything from me. I don't know how long that was at all, but yeah, thumbs up from Paul. Yeah, does anyone have any questions, thoughts, dislikes? I like dislikes, so give me those if you've got them. About these things. Don't know if that QR code is going to work on the screen. But I'm here for a little while. So yeah, go for it.
Have you ever had issues
With
with breaking changes?
breaking changes, that's why you adopt a good semantic versioning change, because the breaking changes should happen in the second decimal place. where new features are added, breaking changes happen. The third decimal place is just for small fixes. Breaking changes like what?
As in like, has it been big issues in the company in terms of like maintaining?
There's always big issues, any company. But not really. Not that I've faced. Like, so say, let's say someone's on 3.2.1 and then you change to 3.2.2 and then there's a breaking change. Yes, and actually, that's where, when I joined the company, they would just say 3.2.1.1 and to fix the change. I'm like, no, don't do that. But in terms of just trying to make things better for developers and then that just causing a weird breaking change, haven't seen that. And I get a lot of people who I see opening tickets and everything, complaining about things. It's never been like, hey, you updated this and it broke this. Not really. I'm sure there have been cases, but.
So I guess on that topic, we work at the same company, and when it comes to breaking changes, we have customers that would say that slightly changing the design of a UI element for them is breaking change, or changing a string is a breaking change because, well, we've not expected this, therefore it's a breaking change, and therefore we'd ideally like a feature flag for every one of those changes. And I'm not saying we do this necessarily, but so I guess it was like, it's kind of the question is, what's your definition of breaking changes? And then it's very easy to not identify every time that you make a change if someone might somewhere call it a breaking change. They could say, oh, we've got our snapshot test suites that are running, and this moved 1 pixel. Therefore, it's a breaking change from us from a code perspective, but it's changed, I guess.
Okay, I understand. We haven't had like that coming from the Agora UI kit. I think we haven't really had that because we haven't had any really big UI changes. But so that UI kit, there's also a version for Android. There's a version for every platform, web even. Flutter, and we're going to go through a big UI revamp right now because it's a little bit over-engineered, maybe the UI. So I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one if I see these meetups again after we go through that. But yeah, something to keep in mind for sure. But that's going to be it'll be a major change in the version. So it's going to be a breaking change. Any other questions about anything? Yep, go for it.
How about Swift UI?
Swift UI, yes.
Native.
I didn't mention Swift UI at all.
Yeah.
You're right. I was thinking about that while I sat down. So, as far as like the core SDK at Agora, for example, adding video to Swift UI when it's not just a stream, like pulling in a stream URL from somewhere. If it's a live stream, that's so. So when you have like RTMP push, which is when it goes to a server and then you just pull it down from yours. So with Agora, it goes kind of direct to you, comes in a little bit differently. You can't really use Swift UI directly with that, but with Agora UI Kit, we have added classes for Swift UI. So if someone wants to use Swift UI instead of something that looks more like UI Kit, they can actually just import the class there. So,
And which one is it?
what's that?
So we're using Agora IO, but like we integrated it like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, okay.
But that's the older version. Right? Now we kicked off a completely Swift UI app, right?
So,
I'm just thinking like from years of development in that sense, right?
so we have a couple of blogs showing how to use the core SDK with Swift UI, but with the we call it Agora UI Kit, but there is a class in there to say, oh, just use this object, and that is a Swift UI object. You can just put it in your Swift UI. That makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, Swift UI is definitely a thing that is becoming more and more popular. But yeah, there's always has to be a UI view representable for these kind of videos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah. Any more for any more?
You didn't talk about conceptual documentation.
Conceptual documentation.
And what are your thoughts on that?
Go on, tell me. I'm a bit.
I'm a big fan of conceptual documentation, rather than just like method by method.
Conceptual as in
Like a top, like a
like
overall
going
view.
through the whole process.
Yeah,
Or-
pretty much.
Oh,
And how like maybe different components fit together.
So like a blog, really, like a walkthrough sort of project. Can you give me an example of
like a kind of like if you've seen the Cocoa programming guides that they used to do.
Is that the new ones where you go through and you
No,
scroll?
these are the old ones.
Oh, okay.
The really old ones.
You have to be a bit more descriptive.
So like Apple used to do these docs about how like UI kit kind of fit together, and they did it for loads of like frameworks.
Okay.
You could just go like a whole.
Show me afterwards.
Okay.
I feel very silly right now, not knowing exactly what you mean, but yeah, show me afterwards. We'll have a look and yeah, it sounds cool. I'm always interested in new things. Actually, I came to the meetup last month, and what do we have? We have
Kotlin.
the Kotlin
For
cross-platform stuff, and that's you know, I work with a lot of cross-platform things like Flutter and React Native and everything, and that's the first one that actually said to me that actually looks interesting.
It was good.
Yeah,
It's really good.
So our frameworks do work with that, but we'll be coming out with some more integrated things with that, push that a little bit if it takes off. Any more questions that I won't be embarrassed to not understand? Come on.
Is there anything you have to consider differently when distributing a binary rather than a source code?
Yes. So one of the things that a lot of companies that do distribute binaries forget, and some of you may have seen this, where they don't add the right things to the binary, like they don't add the right architectures. They might forget the simulator completely. They might forget the M1 simulator because it runs differently than the Intel simulator. And actually, when I joined Agora, these were all forgotten about. So I was sure to make sure we got those in. Those are the main things to think about. Apart from that, just make sure your code is following all the code design patterns so that when it goes into Swift, it works fine. And yeah, and that will all work fine with Swift Package Manager. There's pretty much no excuse not to use Swift Package Manager these days. There's probably some excuse, but I'm not sure of it. Any more questions?
Going once, going twice.
I'll be hanging around and yeah, I don't know, doing something afterwards. So yeah, let me know if there's anything comes up, and we'll talk. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming.